just will never get over that is now apparently a good technology. In the bottom right, as the red Terran for Cascade, he is souL.
I'm with you. I'm still a boomer who uses a wired mouse, and I get an anxiety attack when I think of my mouse like not functioning properly because my battery is in charge. But even souL uses one, so I'm sure they're good. In the top left side of Romanticide, we're looking at the main base of the Polish brothers, who truly has had an absolutely fantastic year. Multiple playoff runs in these DreamHack Masters events. It is Gerald.
Romanticide being our first map. Actually, when I was describing everything I did in the pre-show before this game, I always imagined Death Aura for souL for some reason. I guess it's just Death Aura's defensive properties and getting into the late game. But Romanticide, while it is a large map, I mean, it's not necessarily that its 4 bases are super easy. They're definitely, capable of being gotten to. There's so much room to play left to right, and that's why we see those PvPs look as wild as they do. So I wonder if that's going to give Gerald a little more flexibility in those late game scenarios we're talking of. 4 or 5 bases, running around, actually controlling the multi-layered army really well, and catching souL off guard. So I think that's actually I actually like this map for Gerald the more I think through it.
It's funny you say that, because I almost pretty much always agree with you, but I actually kind of like this map for souL. Because if I think of souL, I think of these complex Terran armies as well, where he gets great setups with Liberators and tanks, and I can totally see him having like tanks behind rocks or Liberators in gnarly spots that if you blink forward, you get EMP'd. So I think it can go 2 ways. Like, yes, it plays into the strengths of Gerald because he is so good in the super long games and he has excellent control of those like complicated Protoss units. On the other hand, I think of souL and his strong setups and often very sophisticated Terran armies as well, and I'm like, yeah, I think souL is gonna take game 1 here.
We can disagree. It's not against the law, so we're gonna actually have, what's great about this is that it's not hypothetical. All right, like who wins this game, and then we'll see who was right. Stargate opener for Gerald is already, I guess, a bit of a difference. I mean, I never pinned Gerald as actually one particular technology over another. I feel like I've seen a decent amount of Twilight Council or Stargate, because Robo openers is just right into Robo, don't come down too often, but that is important for souL to see, which he has seen and re-seen, and he's even going to grab another probe.
What a start. Getting 1 probe on the other side of the map and then getting 2 probes with your Reaper, that's going to feel pretty good. If I'm a Terran player, I'd be like, hell yeah. And if I'm a Protoss, I'm already upset if I lose 1 probe to the Reaper. I'm like, well, that's it. That's where I draw the line.
I mean, when that happens, I'm just like, hell yeah, I'm so great at this game. When it happens to me, I'm like, okay, calm down. Or are you beyond? Just
yeah,
gonna win the game. All right. Exactly. So Phoenix, I'm interested if it's going to be Phoenix Colossus or Phoenix Charge. I actually didn't really think of Phoenix Colossus for this map. I know we just saw a lot of it from Showtime. They seem to just really be appreciating that style. But I'm open to see if maybe, you know what, gas is going down. It is going to be Phoenix Colossus.
Yep. Yeah, taking both gases in the natural is a pretty big tell for that one. And it seems like souL is already well aware of this, and he's like, cool, I can go for a triple command center build. There are some 2-base openings with Cyclones and Vikings, and they actually make for some pretty gnarly pushes, but I don't think this is the best map for it. So the only thing that would really make sense to me is just going for triple CC. Yeah, 3 adepts in the main base, you don't see that very often.
Yeah, which I would actually expect them to have gotten a little bit more. I mean, just really unfortunate that the shots weren't quite lined up. Thought maybe that'd be more 4 SCVs going down. And instead it's 4 probes going down, only 2 SCVs for the cost of 3 adepts, which, yes, the adepts aren't going to add very much more for the future. It's still not really a great trade.
I would have actually liked if souL would have built that command center a bit closer, either to the starport or a bit more towards the bottom, because it can actually be hard to scout this with Phoenixes. And I know that sounds silly, because Phoenixes are so fast and they're pretty tanky, but it's really hard to enter a Terran main base if they're just chilling on Cyclone Viking. And as a Protoss, you'd really love to confirm whether or not there is a third command center. You can see that's exactly what Gerald was doing there, and now he did spot the orbital. So yes, it would have delayed souL's eventual economy by a couple of seconds because that command center would have to fly further. But I actually think it's worth putting that extra bit of fear into the Protoss heart.
Well, I was going to comment on that Mortal, but I think the Stargate's a lot more interesting. So 2 Stargate, that's going to be a lot of Phoenix. Still going into Colossus, of course, but I mean, this is something that, like, I know Goblin has done and actually has led into carrier armies surprisingly quickly. I think it is very possible that Gerald is thinking that far in the future, considering how often souL has played super long games. But he also might actually be hoping for a bit of a surprise here, too. I mean, if souL doesn't get into the main to see that, the Phoenix count could grow before he realizes it. Something who's like, not just 6, but rather 15.
Ooh. Well, that's a bad way to get to 15 Phoenixes, as he just bleeds out 2 Phoenixes. I'm actually not that big of a fan of lifting that many Marines in the natural either. It always feels good because you're like, yeah, I'm trading energy for units, but it's really better to like maybe lose 1 Phoenix but kill 6 or 7 SCVs than it is to lift 5 or 6 Marines, because those Marines will be rebuilt anyway. And look at how adventurous souL is right now with 3 Cyclones and 2 Vikings. He's not supposed to be here, but he is putting, he's pushing these Phoenixes all the way back. And at home, he's going for Widow Mines with Drilling Claws. I mean, I mentioned it, but I didn't expect it this game, Zombie Grub, against the Phoenix opening of Gerald.
It was so funny is that I think I was casting with Wardy and he had the same reaction. He was like, well, no, that's not what this is for, right? And I was like, well, apparently. And it is, again, one of those things where, like, theoretically, against someone going for Phoenixes, you want to be doing Widow Mine drops, you want to be relying on Banshees. If they play perfectly and they're always in position, no. If they're ever out of position, which is extremely likely, the Phoenixes have to wear multiple hats. They got to be aggressive and defensive. Yep. Then, yeah, okay, the Widow Mines might still be able to get some decent damage done. Plus, at the end of the day, you still have Widow Mines with Drilling Claws, which is a powerful upgrade, even as we head into the late game. That, I thought, was actually going to reach. Okay, just 1 probe for now.
It's going to recall the Observer, because Gerald only had a single Observer out on the map. And Widow Mine is going to shoot at the Colossus, so it doesn't really get too much done there. I'm actually surprised that he saw that. I guess the Observer was flying around her. No, there's a lot of vision in surveillance mode.
Yeah, the surveillance mode, I guess, is hella drug. So wait, did he recall it in surveillance mode?
Yep.
I've never thought about that dynamic.
Yep. Yeah, no, it happens to me a lot where I recall it, and then it's in surveillance mode, and I'm F2ing, thinking it's going to help me defend against Dark Templars. Like, where's that stupid Observer? And then it's just stuck above my Nexus. I'm like, no! It happens.
Oh, hopefully he means to keep it there, I guess. So souL did scout that second Stargate with that drop then. I mean, also an increasing number of Phoenix. So I think I think other Terrans might, they might already be setting up for a push actually and be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't. Or maybe they'd be scared to go into the late game, so they just go for it anyways. souL, no matter how the game is going, even if he has a lead, which I think he certainly has a supply lead right now, I'm always going to say that he's going to play more to the late game and maybe keep up the leads he's gotten.
The Phoenixes are so close to that double drop, and now he's sending the Phoenixes back to deal with the Cyclones. No, souL unload. I don't understand what souL does sometimes. Well, souL is such a good player, but he saw the second Stargate. He knows there is a ludicrous amount of Phoenixes, as he does do a Widow Mine drop, gets a little bit of damage, but why would he ever feel the urge to go for a double drop against a guy with like 12 Phoenixes? And you know that they're not on your side of the map because they haven't been arresting your SCVs. Like, these things don't make any sense to me. I think if souL just drops an armory, get 2-2 upgrades, maxes out, runs to the other side of the map, I think he has a way stronger army than Gerald, but he just threw away a lot of supply for nothing.
I agree with that. And I think that it's also kind of like, if it could take a moment, just like a couple of seconds and be like, this kind of describes souL, I think that is kind of it. Like, souL has amazing macro and micro, and I think for some of the other matchups, he actually has excellent decision making. But for TVP, it seems to be kind of like a wall for him. It's like, things are great, a unique style is not, problematic, but for him, sometimes that decision making is what keeps him back. Whether it's the decision to go for double drops into Phoenix, or just the idea that, like, he does play sometimes, I think, too passive. So Geralt, I think you got to be aware on both sides, the possibility of some attack, which is why souL built bunkers and why Geralt hasn't gone immediately up into carriers. But as soon as Geralt has figured out, like, oh, it is this game, I like that he is so well set up to get into it. That said, souL's also very well set up to go into Mass Vikings.
Yep. I mean, I'm still absolutely loving souL's position, despite the fact that he just kind of donated a couple medifacts and a few bio units, and the Widowmine drops haven't been fantastic. What has been fantastic has indeed been his macro at home. And because of all his aggression, obviously Gerald has not been able to accomplish much with the Phoenixes. Now that all started when he lost the initial two, and after that he had trouble dealing with the Vikings and the Cyclones, so not a bad game by souL by any means, but I just feel sometimes he can make it so much easier on himself, but he always chooses the hard way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Scan is pretty important. Just went down to the main to see a Fleet Beacon, researching Templar Archives. I mean, you got to figure out. They're going into carriers, and since he is got a fearsome army, he's not maxed out, but it is quite fearsome, and it's a good Viking count already too. I think actually trying to see what he can do around this fourth base is totally called for. Can he actually break it? I don't know about that. This actual base is so weird to engage into.
I can find it so bizarre, by the way, that we're 11 minutes into a TVP. Gerald has double Stargate, a ridiculous amount of Phoenixes, Disruptors, Carriers on the way, and he's like, you know what I need? I need Storm as well. I'd be like, units! You need units, right? And he's like, no, all the splash damage. But perhaps because he's playing against souL, and he knows that souL never really goes for all-out committed 3-base, like 2-2 timings. Like, no, souL will always be building bases at home. Maybe get ready to build battle cruisers and get ready for nuclear missiles already. This is actually the correct call by Gerald.
That might be the end result here.
No, Phoenixes! Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Once again, Phoenix is in the right place, especially the right time. Going to catch all the medevacs, and well, I think we have one Phoenix loss.
Yep.
A couple more, but still definitely a great find there. Gerald's even getting a little bit of harassment himself, but there is a bunker. And he was even microing with that bunker too, so that is to be defended. But I was going to say, I think we are going to be perhaps headed into a battlecruiser potential. And if we get there, if I see a battlecruiser being made, I'll go into my spiel about how good battlecruisers are. But it's going to take a little while. You know, as souL, you can't just go into it. That takes a long time to build up to a decent count of battlecruisers, leaving plenty of room for your opponent to scout it and then attack it.
I love that after losing 6 medevacs, including quite a few bio units, souL's like, what if I just run my army to the other side of the map? He's like, hey, this is going well. I just got to cancel on the base. I've got a lot of Vikings here. Can I one-shot a carrier? That's a good storm, by the way. I love that storm. Actually clips quite a few of the Vikings and zones them away as well. That's still a Viking count to be, well, to be respected, to say the least. And Gerald has a powerful army, but I also think it's a bit complicated for him to get a great engagement.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those questionable armies, especially if the Vikings actually get to utilize their range and start sniping things before the actual engagement. Oh, okay, well, there goes the entire ground army. Very nice.
Oh, souL, you know that he has disruptors. How can you just land 20 plus supply of bio standing that close to the army? What? A disruptor just went down to what? Oh, it must have been a Nova or something. All right, one carrier did get one-shotted, so that's actually a very nice pickup for souL. And obviously, he is trying to improve his army. This has been a bit of a meme game so far, Zombie Grub. I have a hard time keeping a straight face when I see, you know, a man donate 6 medevacs, and he's like, we all know disruptors are a bit silly. Yes, they can blow up an entire Terran army. But if a Terran army just stands there in the middle of the entire Protoss territory, and you know that there are disruptors, multiple, to then just leave your army there and be macroing at home, I almost feel like you're asking for it a little bit.
I mean, kind of. You know, I feel like that's one of the first things you learn against disruptors, is that you got to move your army like way far away. Because there's always like a, you know, StarCraft is what? How does it go? It's also a game of another resource is attention. There we go, right? And if you can actually say like, I need to go back home, I need to go macro, then your attention's not going to be in the front line. So I feel like Terrans are usually pretty good about recognizing that, just pulling all the way back. But obviously souL was not thinking about that, or perhaps thought that his army was so intimidating that Gerald wouldn't even try. But as it is, he loses a lot of bio, and he's not quite in a position to say, like, I don't care about that. He is getting a strong economy. He is getting to a bank. He's not quite there yet. And actually, Gerald, after all of that, is going to commit to, I guess, an aggression on souL's side of the map. Breaking on this rock was always so awkward, but that's the pathway he wants to take. Is he thinking there's an army or a base to the left? It's actually kind of odd.
Not exactly sure. We have a little bit of a zealot run by running into this mineral line. starting to work on his planetary fortress. Obviously shouldn't be able to kill it, but at the same time, Gerald, his entire ground army is going to try to siege the third base of souL. And there's obviously a couple of unfinished orbitals here as well that he could start working on. Yeah, I feel like Gerald, after those massive Novas he just landed, he's like, you know what, I'm just going to keep trying my luck here. Because if I land one or two more of those, this could potentially go very well. I love the fact that he's using the Liberator's Soul, that is, for those interceptors. Gets bio on top of the High Templars as well. What a crazy fight this has been already.
Yeah, I was trying to control his High Templars. Didn't necessarily control that one Disruptor shot to the greatest visibility. But he still, I mean, pushed that base back, right? So maybe he was hoping to find another base to the very bottom left. But I think what it ended up being was just that he wanted to circumvent the center tower, which he was successful in doing. souL was still very quick to respond, and also I think had added in Liberators at the right time. If that was still just a pure Viking army, it's maybe a little bit scarier. Honestly, as the army is now, souL's army can be very, very good, but it needs the EMPs on it, and needs the Vikings to actually focus fire. The nuke landing would be the ultimate move there, and my god, is that actually going to happen? The Ghost is not being taken down, but the army's no longer in the nuke. Gerald is winning too hard to be in the nuke, actually. He takes a little bit of AoE, but he's already in your natural.
Yep, look at the Vikings as well. The Vikings are just shooting at interceptors, and that is obviously not what they are supposed to be targeting. GG gets called, and in the end, Gerald actually takes a rather convincing Game 1 victory. And I find that shocking, especially because the start was good for souL. I think it was really good. He got a couple of pros with the Reaper, which was fantastic. I think the first exchanges between the Cyclones and the Vikings and the Phoenix really went in favor of souL as well. He had an economic advantage. At one point, you mentioned it, he had like a 35 to 40 supply advantage. And sure, Gerald was spending a lot of money on tech and like expensive units, but for souL to just lose that game like that, I really think is a bit silly.
It's not what we would expect. I mean, yeah, it sucks that he lost the bio, and it was an opportunity for Gerald to control the game a little bit. I don't think you really expect the army that he had was still left over, and souL as well in that scenario, to just lose pretty swiftly within the next 30 seconds. You think at least it'll last 2-3 minutes longer. But Gerald, I do think I'm with you. Like, I feel like souL was actually playing the better game and had the better opportunities, and Gerald was actually ultimately kind of catching up, even though it seemed like he was keeping tabs on how souL was playing. It still was like, well, souL's already at 18 Vikings, bro. It feels a little bit dangerous. Mm-hmm. But then souL just didn't actually execute his army or his position as well as he could. So I would look at that game and still actually be like, you know, favorable towards souL winning the entire best of, if he fixed all those decisions, if he, you know, fixed all the problems. But that's StarCraft, isn't it? So it's a bit unfair to just be like, you could win if you just fixed everything.
No, but yeah, souL, it feels like he does a lot of the difficult things very right, because it's really hard.
Yeah.
The early game skirmishes, like that's very micro intense. You cannot slip up with the macro. You don't want to supply block yourself early on. You can see that souL, his speed and his skill is really shining through there. But he's often getting the better hand of those little exchanges, the little skirmishes, and then he's just like, hey, I'm gonna lose 6 medevacs and a whole bunch of bio, and I'm gonna leave my bio unattended in front of your base. And it's just like, so why do you make it so? Sometimes it's hard to watch souL because you can see the potential, you can see that he is a really good player, but then he does a couple of things wrong where you're just like, that doesn't make any sense. For somebody who's that good and has been playing StarCraft for so long, it almost makes me a bit upset, Zombie Bro.
Well, I think that was a great way to put it in the beginning, right? Like, he does a lot of the very, very difficult things very well, and then some of the more simple things is where he actually falters. Whereas I guess Gerald is a little more well-rounded, might not be hitting some of the peaks that souL can, but has played a very steady level game. And we'll see what he can do on Jagannatha. In the bottom left has the blue Protoss for Team Exxon. He is Gerald.
And in the top right side of this beautiful map, we're looking at the main base of the Polish Terran player. He's now down 0-1. It is a souL.
All right. So, you know, last time I saw Jagannatha with a late TVP, I'm actually getting a little bit of flashback. It's not feeling so great. I was there when I was casting Hero Marine. I forget who the Protoss was. Oh, Goblin.
Goblin.
It was actually,
yeah,
yes.
I knew it.
Yep. And yeah, just like a good old-fashioned late-game TVP. Everyone's doing their thing. It's going to be great. And then over in the blink of an eye. That's I'm a little scared of. So I'm bringing that up because I do think it's a map that can play to a similar stage as the last one. Again, late-game TVP. But the terrain of this map is like, I mean, I'd even say like the opposite of Romanticide, right?
Mm-hmm. I wonder if Gerald is going to go for Phoenixes again. Because I kind of feel that wasn't that great of a game and it wasn't that great of a start. But he did end up winning with his strategy. So if I'm Gerald right now, if I would be in his shoes, I'd be like, well, I actually feel like I can do everything I just did better. I can have a cleaner start. I can have a better early game. I can have a better mid game. If I win that previous game, perhaps I just always win with this strategy. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but I don't think I would switch it up.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those conundrums that never be in the mind of the player we're talking about. But yes, that is a very possible reaction. Just being like, well, if I just fine tune these things, I'll win even harder. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And he might start off with this, this Reaper. In fact, if it doesn't get as many probe kills, it's already a much better game for Gerald. But Gerald is changing things up. I mean, maybe it's a Stargate again, but it sounds like proxy.
Yeah, almost feels like maybe Twilight Council, Dark Shrine, even though you don't normally proxy the Twilight. But hey, if you really want to keep your opponent in the dark, you may as well.
That would be a little surprising, just because, like, if they don't scout anything, then they're scouting everywhere. And that's kind of what you don't want. I mean, ideally, the first thing is the Adept stops the Reaper from scouting at all. But then if you were going to go up to a Dark Shrine, that takes quite a bit of a process. This is going to hit if the Reaper does scout the lack of something in the main, which it looks like it will now, unfortunately for Geralt. He can go scout out for it, but the Stargate will have produced something before he finds it.
Yeah. I get, other than the fact that it's hidden, what do you think is the main value that Gerald gets out of having the Stargate where he currently has it? Because I do feel it's very likely you're eventually going to lose that Stargate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the most obvious location might be too obvious, which is over to the right, so you immediately hit their main base, but that's where they would first scout. So I guess it is a mixture of, yes, it is faster, but it's also a little more hidden. I mean, I feel like as a Terran player, you get into the main like that with the Reaper, you get some like damn decent scouting. You're like, can I figure it out? But that said, the Reaper didn't actually scout the one pylon. And by that, I mean, like, it doesn't scout like this or it could be at home. So I don't know if souL's going to be prepared in the right position, is the first question. And this is actually going to pair up with the Adept. So also revealing a bit of the intent there. That's why it came in from the left side. It wanted to hit that natural, but then miscontrolled, attacking a bunker for far too long. Still going to grab 4 SCVs, but then the Viking pops out, the Oracle dies.
Yeah, once again, not really feeling this for Gerald. I mean, he has created a 10-worker lead for himself. That's pretty nice. Lost only 2 probes at home against a Hellion. That could have been worse, but the Hellion was miscontrolled a little bit. And he also misclicked a little. He wasn't really mining gas when he should have been mining gas. There was still 1 probe for a little while that was just kind of idle. And I wonder if souL now feels like, maybe this game I should get a little more fancy with my Cyclones and Vikings. Because in the last game I felt like I had a decent start. And maybe and he was getting adventurous out on the map. What if I just bring my Marines as well? Maybe I can get really something done on the other side.
With that in mind, plus the actual scenario in this game, I do agree. I kind of hope that souL would move across the map and really threaten Geralt. Because Geralt's also adding on a Twilight Council. Like, he doesn't really have anything to offer in a defense other than just like trying to get the single gateway pumping. Or 3 gateways, sorry, he's already out on the gateways. The no Immortal, no extra Phoenix. It could be scary, but it is 3 gateways, not just 2. And actually quickly adding on more gateways as opposed to a Forge or that robo I was talking about. So maybe it's actually better that souL did not move out. In fact, now that he moves out, now I'm taking it back. I don't know. There's a lot of stalkers being warped in.
Yeah, but I still think there is some good potential. The Vikings, yes, they take a lot of damage from the stalkers, but if they land and they can get a couple shots off, souL has to be careful though. He cannot lose like one of his Cyclones before the party really starts. And obviously there's a battery in the natural, but you can ignore the natural, just go for the 3rd. Gerald, because he lost all the adepts, he had absolutely 0 vision out on the map, and I actually love this push now by souL. If I'm souL, I'm landing my Vikings immediately. You don't need them in the sky, you want to land them, you need them on the ground.
Yeah, I'm with you. If he had actually found the army, been able to tango with the Vikings a little bit, the Cyclones a little bit, one at a time basically, right? Then this starts, more favorably for Geralt. But being caught completely out of position, losing track of the army. He has to give up the Nexus and now has to wait for Blink to really have the full strength of his army. A shield battery overcharge is quite good, so that'll save his Stalkers for now. The next thing to save him will be the Stalkers, and that is 5 gateways, I believe, of Stalker production. So souL, I guess it's back to being a little bit scared for souL. He's going to lose everything on the retreat.
Well, I don't know if he's going to lose everything, but he's definitely going to lose a couple of units. Good defensive Blink there to break the lock on. And here we go. That's the forward Blink. But souL's like, you know what? Let's just trade. I should be able to get 3, 4, 5 Stalkers here, perhaps, if I'm very lucky. And this trade is actually fantastic for souL. I really think that went so much better than you could ever ask for as a Terran player.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a problematic micro, I think. You know, the Blink aggressively, all of them, maybe not have been that worse, that bad, but on the right side, it looked like he wanted to pull back and then realized he had Blink, but then was pulling them back, so he didn't Blink. And, well, it can very easily just go topsy-turvy when it comes to those small micro battles. So that really took the wind out of the sails of, I guess, of a power punch to the main, but still 12 Stalkers is not bad. It is 2 tanks, now siege, protected by an okay number of Marines, a bit of a wall on the left side.
Don't do
Gerald
it.
actually do something.
Don't do it, Gerald. I really don't think he should do this. He may think about it, but I think like just keeping the Stalkers there and maybe putting some pressure on the Orbital when it wants to float over. Careful with the Oracle, as it takes a little too much damage there. souL is bulletproof here. And I think souL at this point is like, you know what? I'm just going to try to get a couple Widow Mines out. He's going to pick up a single Widow Mine. And he's actually going to try to drop that on the other side of the map. And the Robo isn't even done yet. I mean, it will be done by the time this medevac is there. But I kind of like the way souL is doing this. Even though, once again, the timing of Drilling Claws feels a bit odd to me. Like, who goes Drilling Claws after, like, Cyclone, 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 Viking? That is so bizarre to me. But this time it may work out.
Not souL for you, I guess. He really likes it. And I feel like, you know, if anything else, nothing else, like, I think it would maybe deter someone going into, like, mass charge lots, you know, Phoenix charge lot attack. But actually, it is some tank production, then into some Widow Mines, because he wanted to defend against the Blink Stalkers first and foremost, and is continuing to play very defensively in case this is something more than just an expansion, which I think it could have been. If Gerald actually had all of the Stalkers survive, chase down the army, had more pressure with that Blink, then it could have maybe gone into like charge lots also being added in. But either Gerald like never planned it at all to begin with, which is fair, or he changed his mind pretty early on and started adding on not just his third and all of his probes, but also going into a faster fourth base and really just playing into a numbers game that I think is more prepared to defend and then engage than it is to actually engage. War Prism's on the way, but that could be just for harassment.
souL is going to send one medevac out on the right side, but Gerald has already seen it, so I'm kind of expecting these Stalkers to catch it, perhaps mid-air. No, souL's paying attention as well, so that is good job by him. He's losing another medevac with 4 Widow Mines inside of it would really start hurting. If I was souL's coach, I'd be like, maybe chill and maybe stop with the Widow Mines, because it feels that Gerald is kind of ready for it, right? He's getting cannons everywhere. I don't think Gerald would do this against any random Terran. All the Stalkers are nearby. Will the Stalkers blink? No, Gerald is a little bit distracted. They do blink in the end. Can we get one good mine shot? Yeah, medium.
Yeah, exactly, medium. I guess a Zealot went down along with foot probes, but not too much more. One thing...
New mine drop at the fourth base of Gerald, and this one is decent.
Yeah.
Bit unlucky. Could have gotten more there.
Agreed. Yeah, 6 more is not exactly what you would have expected since Gerald was not at all paying attention. I was going to mention that lack of upgrades. So it doesn't, Gerald didn't go for double forge, and his forges aren't even particularly fast as far as, what could have been, what builds could have been chosen. It's more that souL's upgrades are just really late. Like, he got 2 engineering bays to protect his natural, but they didn't use them for a while, so they're not even halfway done. They could even be killed here. That would be problematic. I was like, is Gerald actually going to be aggressive with this? And apparently the answer is yes. It feels like a dangerous thing to do against a very defensively set up souL, but he's also got Storm, and my god, those Storms. The Sim City that was supposed to help out against the Zealots also helps with the Storms. The army was all types of clumped up, and there the reinforcements, the War Prism still intact, Zealots still going ham in the natural. Gerald, wow.
Oh my goodness.
Decisive
He's
victory.
breaking it.
Wow.
I was like, I'm really not sure. Well, I didn't say it. I was like, I don't know. He's like, oh, Protoss. Just getting it in there, right, Gerald? Unbelievable. He has killed 40 SCVs at this point. Getting more Zealots warped in there, and the Storms were good enough. GG. Gerald takes the 2-0 lead over the man that has won like the last 6 or 7 series in a row against him. What a moment to do so, Jess.
Yeah, that last fight actually had a lot to dive into, but we got to go to a break. When we come back, we'll find out if it'll be a clean sweep or if souL can bring it back. Welcome back. We head into Death Or to find out if Gerald can get the 3-0 or if souL can finally take a map. This PVT hasn't really turned out the way I think we expected in terms of the results, and even down to the last second of that last game, it was a surprise. Gerald breaking a defensive souL that is not just literally defensive in that game and looking well set up, but is also known for being defensive. And Gerald still broke him. I don't know if that bodes well for souL.
No, I really don't think it doesn't, and I think he's probably in a pretty shaky mindset as well. But we'll talk more about that crazy fight we just witnessed. In the bottom right side of Death Aura, we're looking at the main base of the man who's up 2-0. He keeps on, I don't even want to say overperforming, but just performing damn well in these DreamHack Masters tournaments. It is Gerald.
In the top left, as the red Terran for Cascade Esports, he is souL.
So what do you think just happened in those last 15 seconds of Jagannatha?
I honestly thought the storms were surprisingly brutal. I'm not sure souL was anticipating them, first of all, but even if he was, His own SimCity, it was a maze for zealots, turned into a maze for his own bio. Like 3 storms were pretty juicy.
Yeah, it felt like the entire game plan of souL was like, he's supposed to attack me through the acceleration zone, you know? You're supposed to come in from that angle. And I'm very well set up for that. And then Gerald's like, but there is another ramp. What if I come in from this angle? So I was like, no. That's not okay. That's not the way we're supposed to do it. I was still a bit surprised that it all worked out, but I think you're spot on. I think all the bio was just pinned against those depots. There were 5 or 6 mines left on the field, but I don't really know where they are. Like, if there were mines basically in front of the bio and all those zealots run forward, those zealots just disappear. I think the bio has a very easy time. Like, yeah, they might take some damage from the storm, but they'll clean up the remaining stalkers. I didn't see a single good mine shot until the zealots were in like super deep. I think they were all on the other side of the depots, because towards the end of the fight, all of a sudden I saw a couple of mines go off and they were splashing all over bio. I was like, oh my goodness, like, it's actually happening. He's breaking him.
Yeah, again, maybe just setting up more so for an attack around the acceleration zone. But there's also those upgrades that I did mention, but I think, you know, I was apprehensive. I was calling the fight, so I didn't have time to think, but I was like, this doesn't seem like it works. Like, this is just a gateway army that moves into a defensive Terran that, like, it's not like he's down 40 supply. But I think the upgrades also certainly played a part. The storms were brutal, but then on top of that, the fact that the leftover bio didn't perform as well as you would think. Yeah, those upgrades were either, I mean, build order wise late, which I haven't really been keeping tabs on souL's usual upgrade timings, or maybe he actually did slip up and they were later than they should be. I'm not sure. But Gerald is going to be going for something a little bit cheeky this game, I think.
But I mean, if you think of all the things that souL spends money on, it only makes sense that his upgrades are a bit later, right? Because he goes triple CC, he makes Cyclones, triple Cyclone, triple Viking, then goes Widowmine Drilling Claws. It's obvious that some of the things are going to be behind, and I guess that's why his upgrade is a bit behind. Like, I have no idea how this is possible. Reaper is just casually running into the natural, as we have 3 probes going down already. The Adepts are going to try to return the favor on the other side of the map. They may get 2 kills, but it's actually amazing to me how much damage these Reapers get done every single game.
It's a little surprising. 2 Adepts, actually 1 Adept now, being on this side of the map was perhaps a little bit too aggressively greedy from Gerald. But you know what's most important? I think that the reason that they're over there too, I think what he wanted to do was keep the Reaper at home, not just to say you have to stay at home, but to specifically not scout. Funnily enough, the Reaper got over there, killed 3 probes, didn't actually get a really deep scout. It saw a Twilight Council as it was finishing though, so I think it's still up in the air. He is getting a Raven, so as long as he's thinking the possibility of a Dark Shrine, well, he is absolutely correct, because it is about 80% done, so it's a little worried, but it's fine now.
Yeah, great game sense perhaps this time by souL all around, because that is definitely the unit that you want to be producing. We don't see an eBay yet, and I do think it's always nice to have one as well, but I think a good defense starts off with the Raven. Hopefully souL can put 2 and 2 together and realize that perhaps something is wrong. Sees that Gerald is still on 2 bases, but I think that's a bit normal when they open up with multiple Adepts and they start getting that aggressive as well.
Yeah, I can't say, like, I think it is just one of those things you have to be afraid of. Considering I think their tenacity with the Adepts is always a bit of like, oh, okay, trying to apply pressure to hide something. And then also that even though there was a bigger moment where DTs were super popular as an opener back when like Zest and the TSL thing happened, they are still like an opener, right? So that is a very good defense. But what we learned from, funnily enough, that TSL is that the DT opener, as long as you don't like overcommit, as long as you don't lose your Warp Prism 4 DTs, it can be an opener. Like, you can sometimes play out the rest of the game, or at least Zest can.
Yeah. What I've learned from TSL is that when you lose your Dark Shrine, you rebuild the Dark Shrine immediately. 3 times if you have to in a single game. That is what I remember from Zest's games. It is going to be another triple command center opening for souL, but at least this time it's a bit different, right? He's not opening up with the Cyclones and the Vikings and the Widowmines with Drilling Claws. No, he's going for some Cloaked Banshees. So I guess he's going to use those to keep Gerald at home while feeling safe on his side of the map. It's got to be a little bit paranoid for souL to play a game like this, right? You're down 0-2. You know that Protoss has a lot of weird timings where Instead of like the usual, they all of a sudden they stop building probes, like 10 probes earlier, they blink in your main base. You're like, what? Of 3 bases? Like, yeah, all of this is possible if you're not able to figure it out. And look at the amount of gateways that Gerald is producing. But hey, Gerald has no robo. Oh, he does a robo. Never mind.
He's not using it, but he will soon enough. There's one observer out on the map, but it's aggressively placed. It's not. It's got to be recalled, I guess. Banshee finally shows herself. One of the weaknesses of Gerald's opener was definitely not having any scouting. I mean, the DPs had gotten in, they would have, but they did not. So the recall is used on both the Stalkers and the Observer. He had to make sure to corral them together before using it. So he loses 5 probes, but if he could have gotten the Banshee, I think that would have been, you could live with that, but he doesn't get the Banshee.
I mean, I feel like I said this in the previous 2 games and it didn't really work out, but I like this opening for souL. Got a couple of kills with the Reaper early on. He now has some pretty good map presence with potentially a double Banshee arrest in the 3rd base or the natural. And at the same time, the Raven is going to strike in the main base as well, drop a couple of other turrets. So you got to be loving this kind of stuff if you're a Terran player.
I think so. This Banshee is finally going to go down. This one is out of cloak, so I think that might also fall, but there's no blink, so actually I'm not going to be chased down. The auto turret is able to bypass the power of the shield battery, and actually it's going to go for the target fire. So 6 less probes going down, maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah. I always feel like the auto turret always gets 2 more kills than I expect. It's like, I think it's going to get 3, and it's like, it's going to get 5 kills. And it's like, bam, it shoots so quick.
It does, yeah. It's a pretty powerful tool. The threat is surprisingly helpful when it comes to those larger engagements, but harassment has always been quite nice, especially against someone who's not going to open the Stargate. I feel like Gerald, obviously he was planning on doing a +1 armor charge attack. Warp Prism's on the way, gateways are done. I feel like you might have to change your mind here.
Yeah, this cannot work. I kind of felt like it wasn't going to work in the previous game. But if this works, Zombie Grub, I'm going to make a Twitter post and I'm going to be like, hey guys, I don't know who's in charge right now, but we need to fix Protoss, okay? Because can we take a look at the 3rd base of souL? Can we just look at how... this is a paranoid man. This is a traumatized man. We see depots, we see Widowmites, we see tanks on the high ground, low ground, missile turret. If Gerald breaks in here, Zombie Grub, I am done for the rest of the day.
Okay, well, I don't think it'll happen, so stick in your seat. We're still going on. This is actually a complete anti-timing as well. 1-1 is going to finish as the attack commences. If Gerald chooses to pull the trigger, he's gonna do it. Oh my god, this is not supposed to work. A lot of bio coming in. I guess the left side of the base is actually up for grabs because it's so far away from those Widowmines, from those tanks, but you're not gonna really actually commit to the engagement. Nothing shoots up unless it's burrowed, so the Warp Prism will survive. But Geralt, that was a long time being prepped, everything was leading into that attack and getting interrupted. To play out the game from here, I mean, it should be like borderline impossible. Just look at the supplies.
I know, he's down 13 workers. He's gonna lose the Warp Prism with 2 Archons inside of it as well. Well, 1 Archon inside of it. The other Archon decides it wants to die on the ground. No, if souL manages to lose this game, then I'm gonna fly to Poland. Well, I'm gonna drive to Poland. I'll be responsible. We're gonna have a little chat. Like, his army is massive, it's monstrous, it's powerful, and the only thing that's on the other side is Zealots. Now, Zealots with charge are good, but this seems like the perfect army to deal with a couple of Zealots.
That is a 50 supply lead, equal upgrades, just so much more here for souL. Geralt really trying to make the best out of this opportunity. Gets a bit of a surround with the Zealots coming in from the north and reinforces from the east, but they're just ultimately going to get melted, and there's nothing backing these Zealots up. There's no 20 Stalkers coming back to help out. There's no storms about to appear. GG. souL is not going to be 3-0'd.
That is a much better game by souL. I felt like it was just going well from the very get-go. I thought the Reaper start was good. Obviously, the Banshees got quite a bit of damage on. When you force out a recall, that's always nice. You take away map vision. You bring the Stalkers back home as well. And the icing on the cake was the Raven getting quite a bit of damage in the main base too. And like you said, Gerald, it felt like this was his plan all along. Well, first is, let's hope Dark Templars do damage. If they don't, I still got that Archon Zealot attack up my sleeve, and that one just got postponed, and in the end, like, that wasn't much of an attack. That was never going to be a fair fight.
Nah, really looks lame at the end of a game like that, where everything else just went wrong. Maybe not catastrophically, not 20 probes, but 5 probes, then 5 probes, then 5 probes is sometimes even worse. So I mean, I think we all believed in souL being able to take a game, or even you guys thought he's going to win. And it still feels like souL, when he can play like that and we can make the appropriate decisions, he does get these fantastic starts. And he does play a style that should, rebuff the attack Gerald keeps showing us. But it's all about, like, does he make that one catastrophic mistake? Does he fly the medevacs into the Phoenix?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And sometimes just a bit stubborn with build orders as well. I like Widowmine with Drilling Claws, I really do, especially as a one-off in the best of 5. I think it's a fantastic opening. Or if you just feel like your opponent loves like way too many gateway units, maybe it's a bit like Zest where it's just Dark Templars, Zealots everywhere, then I think you can actually just use it as a main core strength of your army. Having that together with your bio units is fantastic. But to just rely on those late Widowmine Drilling Claws drops to deal damage, it's like, that doesn't make sense to me. I feel like he's compromising his own position for no reason, unless you get like the sickest shots ever and you kill like 20 probes in every single mineral line, but that doesn't happen very often on this level. So I hope that souL just keeps the game a little more simple for himself and just trusts in his skill, because he's clearly very good.
Yep. And I think Gerald also has to take another approach. I mean, I don't know what he was feeling after that second game with the surprise victory for us anyways. Maybe he was like, yep, I always knew that was going to work. Or maybe he was like, a bit dangerous. But after the last one, perhaps not with the mid-game aggression, but rather, once again, thinking of the late game. It's Pillars of Gold for Game 4. In the top right, now with a point on the board, he is souL.
If you guys just joined us, this is the lower bracket of the European playoffs. The 16 best players are duking it out with each other. But if you lose here, you are eliminated from the tournament. If you win, you move on to the round of 12. Bottom left side, the Polish Protoss, he's still up 2-1. It is Gerald.
Yeah, first thing for Gerald, don't do Dark Templars that get instantly countered. And then second thing, a bit questionable on the actual committal of a charge blink attack. I don't mind like an emphasis on blink stalkers or controlling the map with even a Phoenix charge thing, because I think that he can play off of that as long as he doesn't actually have to commit. But if he's going to put himself into a position where it's like it's do or die and you're down 50 supply, of course he's not going to have a good time.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's just like, obviously you hope the Dark Templars do a lot of damage. I think Gerald was kind of hoping for a very cheeky free win there in game 3. souL once again moves out with a couple of units, maybe drops a mule right when he shouldn't move. I shouldn't have, and then the DD show up and you're loving life, because then it takes the Terran a minute to clean up those Dark Templars and you're super far ahead. This time the opening fell flat on its face. That doesn't have to be the end of the world, but when the Banshees then deal damage, the auto turrets deal damage, and you just get nothing done with your Stalkers, it's like, yeah, okay. All of these things add up, and then we get a final fight like the one we just saw, which wasn't even much of a fight. When even Zealots don't cut it, you know it wasn't a fair fight.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting opener from souL. The Marine popping out, so it pops out faster than a Reaper. So first of all, I would say it usually gets the probe, because the Protoss is like, oh, I can stay until 212 or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And then second of all, it actually might suggest that a Reaper isn't on the way. And I don't think this is going to be the case, but if I was a Protoss player who's like, ooh, no Reaper, I mean, this would have been the game I would have gone for a Dark Shrine. But there is actually a Reaper. It's just coming out second, so it will appear in the natural of Gerald's. Perhaps Gerald won't be expecting it, so his Adept won't be properly positioned, and it can get a couple of those probes, which it's been doing actually every game anyways.
Yes. Now, there is a second Adept about to pop out, but one Adept can actually struggle a little bit, especially if you have to protect 2 middle lines and not just one. So he's going to spot that Adept, though. Obviously has no idea about the Twilight Council in the main base yet. I'm still like, I've seen this opening for many months now, and it's done by all the best Protoss players in the world, so I'm sure that this is good, but I still don't really like this whole like Chrono Boost your first Adept, run it to the other side of the map. It doesn't seem that optimal to me.
Oh, what would you prefer?
I just like build a regular Adept and just stay at home, and then maybe scout with a Sentry a bit later, or scout with a Stargate unit, but yeah, I don't like the Chrono on it. At least there was no shield battery in the main base, because I guess he knew there was no Reaper, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I mean, I haven't looked at it from that perspective. Looks like he has scouted the Twilight Council, which is nice for souL. For me, I actually went from, I just like stole a Zest build, basically, where he always gets a bunch of Stalkers. Like, first and foremost, no adepts. And then I was like, man, I wish I could scout. I was like, oh, that's why they make an adept in the early game. So
I know that issue. Yeah, if you open Stalker Twilight, it's really hard to scout. As these adepts will commit and then get the heli, and obviously you want to get a couple of SUVs here. Got 2 apparently so far. We'll get a Marine as well. I still feel like this is always kind of expensive and it slows you down a little bit in the mid game, but it dealt some damage, so I guess it's a trade.
Yeah, the fact that I got a couple of the army units, I guess, is all right. But I don't like the multiple adept opener, actually. I feel like Terran players, there's a moment there where Terran players were losing a lot to it, or when it was combined with the Stargate, for instance, then that was a game 2. It was like a couple moments where Terrans just died, but hasn't gotten so much. Those adepts, even when they got entered into the main base, they didn't get so much. And I think this game, they would have loved to be in the main base just to get some scouting. It is once again going to be a Banshee opener, and Gerald is going to see it kind of as the Banshee pops, maybe? Nope, Banshee already popped. That's the second one. So that's problematic. Maybe the Observer stays at home then. That would be the best case scenario.
Well, the Observer is getting awfully close towards, well, the Marine, not the Banshee.
Yeah, the Banshee's actually being held up in the main, so... Okay, all right. This Observer could go across the map and try and scout it. He's getting his second one anyways.
I think that he's going for the Marine Lord approach. Like, it is actually kind of... I don't mind it when Terran players bank up 2 Banshees. I actually think it can be kind of cool, because it's hard to find them. It's obviously a bit risky, because if it does get scouted, and Protoss even sees the Banshees leave the main eventually, then all of a sudden it becomes a pretty big investment that did no damage. But the single individual Banshee often doesn't get that much done, and then gives the heads up that there is possibly a second Banshee as well. So I don't hate the move. We'll see how it plays out.
It is kind of one of those risks, though. If an Observer did make it its way across the map immediately, then the one Banshee doing some damage is now maybe 2 Banshees doing none, right? But that's not even likely. 2 Banshees almost always find some damage, even in TVZ, in the proper hands. Can find, Spore Crawler Queen, still find 5 drones. So it can happen here. The Observer actually, it's coming in so late, it doesn't see it at all, right? And the Banshee's getting to the main. Good reaction, though. Very swift.
Yep, he recalls it immediately, but I feel... Wait.
Where's the Observer?
Yeah, it's coming in from the right side. I guess he didn't recall the one that's in the main. This Observer is getting really close. Can we get a good blink? Yes, we can. I think that's the end of both Banshees. I think the Stalkers will be able to blink here again. They still get quite a bit of damage. Blink!
Oh, well, I was going to say it only worked if the Banshee had stuck where it was, and it almost did. There we go, finally going down. So 2 Banshees for 8 probes, and also cleaned up rather quickly.
Yeah, I gotta say though, I think that was a bit sloppy by Gerald, because he actually had a lot of vision in the main base, but it almost felt that he was confused. He's like, what am I seeing? He's like, why is he building a reactor on the starport now? Why is it so late? It felt like he was looking for an armory that wasn't there. And I think by the time he realized, he's like, wait a minute, this seems like a Banshee opening. And then it was a bit too late. And because he now recalled all those Stalkers, it's so easy for souL to push to the other side of the map. I gotta say, souL's army is a little bit split up. I'd like to see him keep his army a little bit more together, because obviously these bio units have way more potential if they're actually standing there in a powerful ball. But this is once again a pretty good start for souL.
Yeah. I think you're spot on about how Gerald just it took him a second to realize what he was actually scouting. And in this case, his army even went to the right. Before realizing that there was anything over to the left side. So it was really out of position. Zealot Warping will take care of the, the probes, but not really the technology. Semix Core and Twilight Council could be grabbed here, and Gerald's still not feeling confident about taking on the fight. He needs to wait for his +1 armor to finish at the very least. Clean this up too.
Yeah, but if I was souL and I see that many Stalkers defending my single drop at the third, I go back in the main base. He already used battery overcharge anyway. This is still a lot of bio units. A couple of Zealots are gonna flank this army from the low ground, but this is such an awkward fight for Zealots. They may win it in the end, Zombie Grub, but there is no way this is a good fight for Gerald.
You see, I think it would have been okay if the Stalkers were involved as well, right? But they took so long. By the time they got here, most of the Zealots had already died, certainly in the main base, and they aren't going to be able to punish those medevacs as they would have liked. So ultimately, very awkward defense from Gerald. And souL gets his 3rd base up, now turned into an orbital. It's not the fastest base, and Gerald can get back to chronoing his probes even to try and get that lead again. And we'll see what Storms can do as well. But this, as you said, this is a good start for souL.
Yeah, well, one medevac actually does go
Nice.
down with a couple of bio units inside of it, so that is a nice pickup for Gerald. I mean, obviously it was a very stressful situation for Gerald, so it's good to see that at least he was able to not completely fall apart. He is getting storm. We know there's a lot of comeback potential on the side of Protoss, whether it's Disruptors or Storm, but the pressure is really getting to him. Look at this supply block, Zombie Grub. This is a big one.
It is, and he also took a long time to rebuild his Cybernetics core. I can see him not bothering to rebuild the Twilight Council for like even a long period of time. He has charged Blink and Templar Archives, but Cybernetics core definitely need to be remade. Wouldn't mind drop at the third base as Gerald moves out. Okay, he is going to see it and protect himself against it, but then now he's missing this entire drop into the main base. The army's just passing each other in the night. Gerald, what's the plan here, man? He's going to recall or just go for it? He's choosing to go for it.
Yep, I think he's gonna go for it. I love that he's wiping in a couple of zealots. He's like, overcharge, couple zealots. Now we do get a recall in the end with the Warp Prism as well. Can we see some fantastic storms? As obviously zealots are gonna kill quite a few SCVs probably on the other side of the map. souL is stimming a lot, wants to get the Prism. One Hero Marine on the top side does not get the Prism, and the storms do go down. So this was actually a really good defense by Gerald. But if I'm Gerald, I'd say this is not enough. You need more, my friend. Keep pushing.
Dang, that was actually a better defense than I thought it was going to be. That War Prism almost going down was so clutch. souL definitely with the right call, but Geralt with the good micro. And he still is going to have 4 High Templars ferried around in VATS. Now, the EMPs are on the way. And sometimes there's just so many of them you can try and prevent, I guess, anticipate the High Templars coming out of that War Prism. But I think the actual call would be, again, to EMP the War Prism and then kill it, because it is down to red health. That is... maybe even going to determine this game. Gerald's going to go for it, but Wood of Mines are here. Liberator is here.
No, Gerald. Don't even think
yeah,
about
that's a no.
Okay, tries to send tried to send a couple of zealots into the natural. I almost feel like if he would have just sent this entire army into the natural, there was potential there, but it still seems like a very complicated position to fight. There are Bayons coming in from every angle. There is ghosts as well on the bottom. Zombie Grub, can this ever work?
I mean, if you can break them into the natural, the High Templars are still zoning out the bio on the third base, and the Liberator, I guess, would be taken out if it tries to reposition, which is exactly what is going to happen here. Medevacs are healing just like 2 units on the right, nothing really on the left as another storm hits Marauders, taking them down to the red. The Immortal would chop them up anyways. Wood of Mines are now repositioning, but is that a bit too late? They could try and go after the Warp Prism, but are they even in range? They're going to be on cooldown, doesn't matter. This is a very odd fight, and it's not going to stop, apparently, as Gerald continues to reinforce.
Wow, Gerald handled all of that so well. I love that he sniped that Liberator. I love how he avoided the mines, even more High Templars into Archons. And he's like, you know what, let's just try and go ahead and end this game. As I'm almost in the main base, let's get on top of the production. The Archon is so useful here as it's soaking up a lot of damage. The other Archon is putting in some good work against the SCPs. And